I have never been very good with words, but I will do my best to be clear as I can be about things that I still don't understand.
Some things exist and over time fade away to nothing. Other things hover at the edge of being but never quite manifest. Fleeting ideas that cannot take form. They're not quite nothing, but are certainly not something. I couldn't say which I am. Either a something that briefly existed, or a nothing that nearly did. My life has consisted of a series of escapes. First, of course, the womb, then in rapid succession, school, career, family, city. To run away, to quit, to disappear, society sees these actions, generally speaking, as negative. I do not.
Despite the advice of everybody in town, Richard had bought the old Wilson house. The land attached to it was horrid for crops. It was down in a valley, which meant it would flood with even a little rainfall. In the Middle West, that means it wasn't worth much of anything to anybody.
I'm telling you, it's fine.
Won't it be very expensive?
I insist.
It's very kind.
Really, Martha, it's our pleasure. I wish we could pay you more, and these kind of allowances make me feel better about the entire arrangement.
I don't know what to say, Mr. Dorloff.
Say thank you. And it's just Richard, okay? When you speak to me like that, it makes me feel like my own man.
Yes. Thank you.
There was a tension in Martha between the everyday and the eternal. At first it was easy to misinterpret her as shy or naive, but she was neither. She was more aware than others.
Hello? Operator? I'd like to place a call to Elkton 371. Hello? Hello, Auntie Ruth? It's lovely to hear your voice. I hope you're well. I mean, it's me. It's Martha. Is everyone there? Say hello to William and Uncle Silas for me. Tell them I love them. No, I can't talk to them myself. I'm on my employer's telephone. They've been very generous with me. Must be very expensive long distance. It's like a miracle to hear you so close with all the land between us. Yes. Yes? But it's sure then. If it's God's will. Yes, if it would comfort you, I'd be happy to. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Yes. No, I should go. This must just be horribly expensive. I love you. Until next time. I love you.
I'm getting ahead of myself. If you're gonna follow this story, there are 3 people you need to keep track of. My name is Richard Dorleth. I write popular fiction, which is to say trash. My wife, Barbara Fowler, she was a poet. Perhaps I should say she is a poet. And an uncommon young woman we employed as our maid named...
Martha, what are you doing here? You have to leave. I have to tidy up for a bit.
Yes, of course. Sorry, I was lost in prayer.
What to say? In the days between the wars.
In those days, I still went by Martha Lund.
In the days between the wars. There's something in that.
There is no more beautiful act than to abandon. Perhaps that is why the word itself is so lovely on the tongue. I want to speak to you of my own great abandonment, which pulled me out of the world of man, a world I was never quite sure if I existed in, and has left me drifting here in this untamed sea of thought, a place that I'm not sure exists at all.
It's hard to describe the sensation one has when you lose something and gain something else at the same time.
My hatred for large groups of people was the primary reason we moved to the country. At Richard's behest, of course, but ostensibly for my benefit.
What I will try to tell you will come in waves, in fragments, and what I'm trying to say may not be clear at first. I'm not sure it's even clear to me, but I will try to tell you all the same.
I was already going, already gone before we even moved. I felt like I was asleep and only waiting to wake up.
He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God. In Him I will trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler, from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under the wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. I haven't a clue why they hired me. I suppose because I came cheap, although to me the salary felt like a fortune. Money was very tight, and I was incredibly lucky to have a job at all. Barbara was a writer, a really important writer, although she hadn't published anything in years. It was very intellectual stuff, I guessed, the sort of thing reviewed in some important papers, but not really read by regular people at all. Richard had taken a position in town as a clerk at the local law office. He was a writer too, although of a very different sort. Awful things, the kind of stories young boys read in hideous magazines. They had come from the city, although they were so strange to me they might as well have come from another country altogether.
It's all right.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
It's not.
Deep in the woods, I'd seen something strange. A large, hulking figure covered in thick, dark hair. It must have been what scared Martha, what caused her to fall. Richard didn't seem to see him. Had it been nothing more than a phantom, a figment of my imagination?
You know, to this day, people don't even believe it when I tell them how I first met Martha. So, I was headed home from the office, and I suddenly became very interested in looking at the interior of this local church. You see, it was a very traditional Swedish Lutheran style, the type you'd never see in the city. Hell, I'd certainly never seen one like it. Anyway, very Spartan decoration, you know, can't compete with the Catholics and all that, but quite lovely in its own way.
When he came into the church, I could tell right away he wasn't local, by the way he dressed and the odd way he squinted at the portrait of Martin Luther. He noticed me staring at him.
I had been mulling over an idea for a story about a small-town priest going mad and committing a series of brutal murders. And I thought sitting in the church would help focus my thoughts.
I looked away quickly, but instead of leaving me in peace to live the life I had thought was destined for me, he strolled over to me and sat down next to me and said, "Sweet little spot, isn't it?"
Here. How do you feel today?
Absolutely, utterly, inconsolably normal.
Brilliant. Did you get any writing done?
Sometimes I really wish you would fall down the stairs and break your neck and leave me with the house and the insurance money.
Ah, yes, but sweetheart, we don't have any insurance.
Do you have any idea what happened to that girl? To her face, I mean?
I haven't the fortitude to ask, and no one in town has mentioned a thing to me about it.
I find it rather becoming.
Well, let's not get perverse. It's too early in the evening.
Get me another cigarette.
You know, it can't be good for your throat to smoke this much.
No, for the love of God, Rich. What's the latest gossip in town?
That's what you want to talk about? Idle gossip?
I adore idle gossip.
Well, the big subject these days in town is dead chickens.
Dead chickens.
Someone's been tearing these poor birds to shreds. There's feathers and blood everywhere. First happened at the Sigerson farm, then down in Andy Gartner's place. No clue what's doing it, nothing local. Dominant theory right now is mountain lions.
There was a man in the woods.
Huh?
When Martha fell earlier, there was a man, a vagrant in the woods.
Any chicken blood on him?
He was all covered in hair. He looked almost like a werewolf.
But it wasn't even night. Much less a full moon.
I was often so jealous of them I wanted to die. Some nights when I arrived home, I would bury my head in my pillow and scream as loud as I could to try and let the dark feelings out. I supposed they had the most interesting conversations about all sorts of things. Art and ideas, their house, their writing, the city, one another, love.
Shall we turn out the light?
Yes. When I was young, my father used to tell me a story. I knew it was nothing more than a story, something he murmured to still my restless sleep. Yet it clung to my mind, penetrated deep into my spirit. And when I was alone, I would think of it often. The story was called The Girl Who Was Not. It went something like this. Once upon a time, there was a place which was no place. Then there was a girl who was no girl. And it was always day, and it was always night.
I developed a tendency to think of Martha throughout the day. My mind just drifted to her. I didn't think of her doing anything remarkable, but instead thought of her doing the most mundane things possible. Working at the house, preparing dinner. Doing exactly, I suppose, what she was doing. As my thoughts were mundane, they seemed entirely acceptable. It made me feel good to think of her working, knowing she enjoyed the job I'd given her.
They were very kind to me. Richard insisted that I eat supper with them each day I worked. I think he knew how poor I was and how little Mother and I had to go between us. I tried hard, but I was never a very good maid. To be honest, I have no skills. For many years I was ashamed of that. But what is a skill but a vanity in the end?
Thank you, Martha. This smells incredible.
It's my mother's specialty. I hope you like it.
This is very good.
Come, Lord Jesus, and be our guest, and thy gifts to us be blessed. Amen.
Amen.
Is it all right? I can make you something else if it isn't to your liking.
No need.
Barbara's very sensitive to textures.
Sorry, I didn't know.
No. Sit.
If you are going to make soup, can you please make it with a clear broth? I don't need anything opaque.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't call me ma'am.
Yes.
I like to see what I'm eating.
I thought of Barbara too, of course, but with a certain dread, with a fragmented sort of confusion. I never knew where Barbara was, physically or emotionally. She had taken to wandering throughout the day and sometimes into the night. She never left a note. The endless walks seemed to replace any and all other activities, not only writing, but socialization, reading, often even speech. I would ask, "How are you, Barbara?" And the only response would be the sound of the front door opening, then closing.
Martha was the kind of person built for ecstasy. In another era, she surely would have been martyred and canonized. As it was, she seemed condemned to a rather mundane existence, serving others, quietly waiting her turn. She bore these injustices with the same elegance as another might bear the lash or the crucifix.
Martha?
Sorry,
What for?
I shouldn't be daydreaming.
You don't have any nicknames, do you?
Excuse me?
You know, like Maddie, Patsy, that sort of thing. You know, most of my good friends back in the city call me Dickie.
Barbara doesn't call you Dickie?
No. She finds that rather infantile. What about May? No, that's for Margaret. Maybe just M.
M.
Iconic, don't you think? I think it's rather nice. Martha sounds so formal.
Everyone's always called me Martha, but I suppose you can call me whatever you like.
Well, your pay for the week, M.
Thank you.
No need to thank me. You've earned it. You're doing a great job. Oh, how's your aunt?
My mother received a telegram this morning. She passed in her sleep.
Sorry.
I sometimes fantasized that Richard and Martha made love while I was gone. I knew she would never do anything of the sort, but still. I imagined that she would close those big baby eyes and open her mouth a little, lean her head back, and let those sharp white teeth show along the edges of her lips. She would hold this position naturally, awaiting whatever fate held in store for her.
Richard used to touch me, maybe more than was appropriate. Barbara would touch me too, but she touched me with her gaze instead of her skin. She would sit for hours each day staring at me as I worked. On occasion she would speak to me. The sensation, I imagine, was similar to the one felt by a rabbit when it is watched by a hawk.
Do you know what your name means?
Pardon?
The etymology? The history of the name?
Martha's the sister of Mary and Lazarus.
It's Aramaic. Or rather, an English translation of a Greek translation of Aramaic. It means lady or mistress, the woman in charge of the household.
Not sure I'm in charge of anything. Barbara's not in the Bible.
No.
She was a saint. God healed her wounds each night after they tortured her.
She was killed by her father.
What's the history of your name?
It's Greek. Means stranger, foreigner, same root as barbarian. Supposedly it's from the sound of foreign languages to the Greek ear. Ba, ba.
Like a sheep.
Yes, exactly.
From our first day together, I always had the sense, when she left our house, that Martha lingered at the door. Sometimes, after she had gone, I would open the door expecting to find her standing there in the yard. But there was always only empty night. I slowly realized I had become possessed. It was an odd obsession, seemingly arbitrary, but there was something about her. Was it her childlike nature that made her so attractive? Or perhaps was it that face, which she took so much care to hide? I didn't know exactly where she lived. Everything here was so far apart. How many hours did she walk to get back home? Was she at peace out there? Or terrified of what might be in the shadows?
I fell in love in the summer of the killings. At the start, it was only dead animals, turning up all around the outskirts of town. First chickens, then cats, then dogs. It was horrible. I would avert my eyes from such gruesome sights, but couldn't close my ears to the ceaseless talk about them. There was the odd feeling of living through a plague, Perhaps a sign from God. I became scared of walking home alone, and Richard took to accompanying me.
Oh, I got the magic touch. This. Pretty good, that one.
You know, I'm embarrassed to say it, but I read one of your stories.
Not your cup of tea, I imagine. Which one did you read?
Beyond the Border?
Beyond the Borders. In Tales of the Bizarre?
Yes. I read it on a bench near the square, and some school children saw me, and they must have thought I was mad reading a magazine like that with all the skeletons on the cover.
What on earth did you think of it?
It was touching.
Not the usual reaction.
Maybe not on the surface, but it's an allegory, isn't it? When Danford finally steps through the hole in the wall, he's leaving the world, of course, but it isn't a suicide even if he won't be alive in the usual sense. He's found a new way of being, a new faith, and he needs a new way of existing to go along with it.
Well, I'm glad the hopefulness of it came through, despite the rather violent context. I like to think of them as religious stories in a strange sort of way. Horror is the most spiritual genre, I think.
Is it horror? I wouldn't have called it horror.
Well, I'm not sure I would call it horror either, but when you write a story where a headless body climbs in through a window after smashing it with a rock, that's usually what editors call it. Have you read the Egyptian Book of the Dead?
Everything individual was melting away. Even the separation of time evaporated. I could barely remember when one day ended and another began. My mind kept turning back to my father's story of the no girl and her no place. I felt perhaps I was undergoing a transformation. That I was turning into and moving towards that nothing.
Martha,
Sorry, you startled me.
would you like lemonade?
Thank you, that's very kind.
Thought you might be hot.
I don't mind the heat. Father says if you're sweating, you know you're alive. Anyways, if it's too hot, I just think of the winter. I'm glad it's not too cold.
Oh, the winter's bad here?
Bad? It's just winter. Must be very different in the city.
Wait. Don't move. I'll be right back.
I don't usually like to
Hold
have...
still. The light looks just perfect on you.
Despite all his successes, writing has never come naturally to Richard. He gets all worked up, grumpy, sweating and swearing. It's best not to be around him when he's writing.
I had ceased to write years before, not out of pain or loathing, but out of an immense indifference. Whatever an author says, to write you must care about the reader. Richard's failing as a writer is that he cares about them too much. Mine was that I cared far too little.
The greatest struggle was determining what the beast even looked like. Martha had seen him, but only briefly, and what she told me wasn't of much use. Barb's explanations were also vague. A man, but covered in hair. It's completely inadequate. To write something, you have to be able to see it. I was going in circles trying to define the damn creature. Maybe I was going about it all wrong. Maybe any description of the hairy man would be inadequate, even silly. Perhaps it would be better if he was never seen at all. If he was nothing more than a vague, floating menace, something which may or may not be hiding just out of frame, waiting to lunge.
I think Richard was jealous of me, in a way. As a writer, I mean. For him, it was this immense, arduous effort that always ended in disappointment. Since I didn't care, for me, it was no effort at all.
13 Stories by Barbara Erasmus Fowler. I first realized my daughter was a genius when she was 6. We were aboard a commercial ship traveling to the island of Syros, Greece, where I was engaged to work on an article about local Cycladian funerary rites, when all of a sudden she turned to me and said, "I have an idea for a novel." An earthquake is only the breathing of the world. As the building collapsed around Esther, she instantly realized this. As the building collapsed before her very eyes, she heard the sound of a gentle sigh. Esther did not run, nor scream, nor hide, but knelt gently towards the trembling surface of the planet. She lay her hand upon the furious ground, took a deep breath, and tried to make a sound to comfort her home. What emerged from her was something between a murmur and a hum. As quickly as it had begun, it was over. The shuddering ceased. A great moan drifted through the air, slowly dissipating as it stretched out to the horizon. There, she said, patting the ground as if it were a little sister.
Do you know that boy in town, Sammy Fisher, 10 years old?
I don't know anyone aside from you, really.
He's gone missing. I used to babysit him when he was a boy.
I'm sure he'll turn up. You know how boys are.
There's a lot of fear and worry in town.
Fear?
Because of the hairy man. Andy Gardner saw him going through his trash. They think that's who's been killing the animals. Now they think maybe he has Sammy.
Seems a rather dramatic conclusion.
Yes, I shouldn't rush to judgment. I do hope Sammy's all right.
You know, you needn't come into work next week.
Oh?
We'll be going out of town.
Well, then I must come. Water the plants and make sure everything's all right.
I can ask the Lowenberg boy down the road to come water the plants. No reason for you to come all the way up here just for that.
I like to come.
You should go visit your aunt. You and your mother both. I can lend you the money. I'll give it to you. You didn't pay back, and we don't have to tell.
My aunt passed. I told Dickie last week.
He hadn't mentioned.
Do you and Richard plan to have children?
No, most definitely not.
Really? But you're both so smart and handsome. They'd be the luckiest children.
Would they be?
If you change your mind, if you do decide to have children, I hope you'll let me watch it from time to time, like as a sort of nanny. Or if you really don't like having it around, if it's distracting from your writing, I mean, I can keep it at my house just until it's a bit bigger and doesn't need as much attention. My mother wouldn't mind. She loves babies. I could even nurse it. I wouldn't mind. I'm just being silly, of course.
Why not have one of your own?
Me.
Would you like me to find you a man? I could, you know. We have some very charming friends from the city that would eat you up.
I know that's not true. No man would be interested in me.
Well, Richard watches you closely enough, and Richard is one to appreciate beauty. As I don't want a baby and you do, perhaps Dickie could oblige you and then everyone would be happy.
Please don't joke. I'm not very good at jokes.
There was a sound so small Danford scarcely could perceive it. It was not even sound, but rather the absence thereof, a void which had spread throughout the collapsed mansion and drained it of the tenuous connections it still had to the outside world. Bit by bit, the atmosphere he had come to take for granted disappeared. There were no more creaking floorboards, no more rusted hinges, no more chattering of mice, nor gentle whir of wasps. The wind itself disappeared into oblivion, and Danford wondered, can an ear which has heard nothing, true nothing, ever hear the physical world once again?
What I had seen was a man, but not a man. I tried to forget the image, to pretend it was my overactive imagination. But he was real, flesh and blood and hair, staring back at me with eyes that looked almost frightened. Just doesn't feel right, our being alone together.
Martha, it's the middle of the day. The door is wide open. And anyway, it's perfectly normal for a maid to be in her employer's bedroom.
I was curious about something.
Go ahead.
Barbara told me you were working on a novel.
Really? She told you about that?
Just that you were working on it and that you were having a very difficult time. That she was proud of you for working so hard on it.
Barbara said she was proud of me?
She must be proud of you. You've had so many stories published. Everyone in town talks about it.
No offense, Martha, but you don't know much about the literary world, and even less about the inner mechanics of Barbara Erasmus Fowler. I'm strictly a nobody, and she thinks very little of my writing.
I was wondering if you'd tell me about it.
Well, it's not finished. The end's dreadful. It really needs a better twist.
I don't mind. I'm not sure I like twists. I'm sure it'll be plenty good for me.
All right, it's about this down-and-out modernist composer named Hugh Frost. Hugh feels the musical world is overlooking his myriad contributions to its development. He makes money teaching composition to a group of private pupils. The foremost among them is a strange young man, pale and slender, named Lucian Grange. One day, Lucian brings him an odd-looking score, which he pieced together himself, constructed from history books, ancient tomes, grimoire, and the like. He wants to know if Hugh would help him to perform it at the stroke of midnight. But what Hugh doesn't know is that the last bars of the first movement contain a group of notes, syncopated in such a way that correspond to a heart murmur that Hugh has had since childhood. And when Lucian and Hugh play these notes...
One day, the girl who was not was walking through the clouds. She did this regularly, but this day there was a great wind which came from the north. The clouds rushed beneath her feet, and before she knew it, she had been pushed to the world of humans. The clouds disappeared, and the girl who was not found herself in the middle of a human town. She was young and lost, and an old couple found her wandering. They had always wanted a child, but had never been able to have one, so they took in the girl and raised her as if she was their own daughter.
It all started going wrong around the same time that the Fisher boy died. How little I feel now remembering that. I was at his funeral with everyone else. I held his wailing mother in my arms. I wept tears that felt like they would never end. I remember the awful, hollow feeling. I wondered how God could let a little boy like him die that way, so senselessly. Thank you for helping me.
It's a way to pass the time. These for your mother.
Some the rest I'll put on Sammy's grave.
Did Sammy like flowers?
I don't know.
I suppose it's the thought that counts.
Could I ask you a question? It's rather serious. Serious to me, anyway.
Of course. I'm remarkably good at keeping secrets, if that's what it is.
It's not a secret, it's a dream I had a couple weeks ago. I can't stop thinking about it. I tried to talk to my mother about it, but she told me not to worry about that sort of thing. Do you think dreams have meanings?
Surely. Sometimes multiple meanings.
I always felt that dreams were messages from angels or God. That when we dream, they're trying to talk to us to tell us something.
Aristotle thought dreams were the result of subtle movements of our organs while we slept.
Our organs,
I suppose both interpretations could be true. Perhaps God wills our organs to move.
I suppose. If I tell you, you won't make fun of me, even if it's very silly and childish.
No. Anyway, I've always held the silly and the childish in high esteem.
I'm flying, I think. I've never flown before, so I don't know how I can dream it exactly. My mouth is closed tight and air streams through my nostrils, filling my body and making me even lighter. A gust of icy wind blows into me. My skin bristles and the feathers ruffle, protecting me from the cold. I suppose I'm a bird. I don't feel like a bird, I feel like a woman. I can see left and right without moving my head. I'm surrounded by swollen dark clouds. A storm? The clouds should be frightening, but they aren't. Not really. They merely are. The rain begins to fall. I feel the impact of a drop as it hits me, but it rolls off my feathers. It doesn't even touch my skin. Still, I know I should come down before the sky opens up fully onto me. I'm moving down now. The expansive hole is shrinking as my eyes focus on a single point. I see the world, then a field, a tree in a field, a branch on the tree, a spot on the branch. I see it all at once, and I see each separate detail as it moves towards me with increasing speed. Everything, every tree, every blade of grass has a radiation, something not seen but felt. I can feel the push and pull of each object on my body. I'm about to make contact with the branch. Just as quickly as the rain came, it stops. Just a spring shower. Water clings to the leaves around me. That's when I hear it. Close my eyes to take it in. It's so glorious. Many hundreds and thousands of choirs calling out in unison. The other birds are singing to me. A million songs that fill the air entirely. My body quivers. I can feel the songs in my very bones. I open my eyes and the songs are gone. It's a dream, just a beautiful dream. This is not my bed, and I'm standing, not laying down. The room is dark. An evening light pours through the window, illuminating the space. Something metal glimmers just in front of my eyes, and I see something dimly in the distance, a pigeon perched in a gilded cage. I realize almost immediately that I am her, that I've caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I'm not dreaming, not anymore. This is reality. This is where I live, where I've always lived, and all the rest. The flight, the forest, the rain, the song. But a dream, perhaps a memory. I sit in the room for what feels like years. I watch the light grow weaker, eventually black, then brighter again. I sit and wait, though I know not what I'm waiting for. The door opens and a man comes in. He's wearing a worn-out suit, brown shoes, and gold glasses. He turns on a lamp and sets down a briefcase. He looks at me and smiles. He says my name. Martha, my love. Did you sleep well? I open my mouth to reply, but no words come. He approaches me, smiling, and opens the door to my cage. He takes me in his hands. He's absolutely huge, a giant. I stand on his finger and look up at him. He's a kind man, I can tell, and I feel that he knows me well, as if we spent our lives together in this room. I know it's absurd. I know that he's a man and I'm a bird, but I think maybe he's my husband. He runs his fingers across me. His hands are warm, the sensation's amazing. I close my eyes to take it in. Trying to forget my confused thoughts and just experience his touch. He runs a finger across each of my sides, across my head, down my neck. He knows my body well. He must be my husband. I can tell that he loves me. He knows exactly where I want to be touched, the right pressure and speed of each stroke. I feel myself being set down. I open my eyes and I'm looking out on a window. He slides the pane open and there's a fine metal mesh attached to the inside. He sits at the desk and I watch him a while, but he doesn't seem to be doing anything, so I turn and look out the window. He looks out on a lawn and past that a fence, and beyond that a road, and beyond that I can see a field, beyond that just barely visible the edge of a forest. I recognize it. It's the field I landed in earlier when I was dreaming. My heart starts beating faster while I hear their song again. I push myself against the metal mesh. I can hear many things. I hear the pipes in the walls, my husband's pen as it moves across his papers, an endless stream of motor cars in the distance. There's no song, at least not that I can hear. I look up at the sky and I'm happy to see the clouds. They're moving quickly. I watch them in a daze, watch the sunlight play against them. They're slowly changing textures. There's no time, just clouds, my husband and me. The sky grows dim. I feel hands enveloping me, caressing me. Until tomorrow, my love. He's lifting me and stepping away from the window. The tree, the field, the forest are retreating from my view. I cry out as loudly as I can, but all that emerges is a weak, gentle coo. A soft kiss on the head, the metal door of my cage swinging shut. He makes a coo back at me, a poor imitation of my voice. He lights a cigarette and stares at me for a long while, and I stare back. I hope that he'll touch me again, and he does, just once, gently. Then he's gone. The room grows darker, my eyes struggle to adjust. I can smell the smoke of his cigarette lingering where he touched me. I close my eyes and listen. There is no song. I feel old. Then I fall asleep. And I wake up.
I'm not so sure it's a good idea.
It's an excellent idea. It's a blending of realism and fantasy, just like we're always talking about. The reader will think they're being presented with a kind of horror story, and then it reveals itself to be absolutely true. It could even start with, or maybe end with a line based on a true story, or these events happened in a small American town in 1939, or something like that.
You don't think it's rather crass? The boy's dead after all.
Well, yes, that's a shame, but people do die, Barb. It doesn't mean one can't write about them or use them for inspiration anyway. I mean, if I died in some awful way, I would hope somebody would write about it. Where the hell? Hold on. Listen.
There is a class of anomalies in which there is an exaggerated development of hair known as hypertrichosis. We would naturally expect to find primitive peoples who are not provided with artificial protection against the wind, supplied with an extra quantity of hair, or having a hairy coat like animals. But this is sometimes too found among civilized people. This abnormal presence of hair on the human body has been known for many years. The description of Esau in the Bible is an early instance. Wow. Yeah, and then it just goes on to describe different cases. It's just a medical condition, and folks are going mad about it. Needs a good title. Needs a great title. Something that could really lead the reader to side with the townsfolk up until the very end. Or maybe you make the townsfolk look bad, like real jerks, and then the twist is that the hairy man really is the child killer.
Do you have a cigarette?
Anyway, I don't have the end bit worked out, but I think it's a good subject. I think it's a damn good subject.
And a light.
You know, you could at least feign a little enthusiasm.
In her home, the girl who was not had been able to move freely. The fields, the mountains, the sky, the ocean, all of this was hers and hers alone. But now she found herself horribly constrained. When she tried to fly, she merely hopped, and if she dove into the sea, she could no longer breathe. To her horror, she realized that during her journey, she had transformed into a normal human. She felt pain and sorrow and hunger and all the human things that had never troubled her before.
This Mia Americana, a novella by B.E. Fowler. Is this the dress?
Yes, that's the one.
It's a very fine dress.
It was a wedding gift. I'd never buy something so expensive, but if someone gives it to you, there's nothing to do but wear it.
You look quite beautiful in it.
Help me with my hair.
How did you and Richard meet?
I was an office girl at the law firm he was working at back in the city.
You an office girl?
After Father left, we didn't have a dime. I had to work in order to pay the rent.
I can't imagine you working like that.
I didn't last long.
Is it very romantic?
I suppose so. He used to leave books on my desk. He was the only man who ever gave me books instead of flowers. Good books, too, not like the dreck he writes. Yes, help me with my dress now. It's hell to button that thing.
How did he propose?
It's not a very appropriate story. Sure you want to hear it?
Yes.
We were in the woods for the weekend, using a cabin his father owns. I'd already been fired from the office at this point, so I was basically living off the dinners he bought me. We'd hiked to the top of this mountain and we were, well, making love. You'll excuse the term. He was holding me. My back was against a tree and my dress was up. I remember the bark scraping against my skin, and I was worried my dress would get bloody. He whispered to me, "Will you marry me?" I said, "Why not?" And that was that. How do I look?
Perfect.
We'll be late to the party.
Barbara had a transcendent singing voice. It's something that always surprised people about her. She didn't seem like the kind of person who would sing, and she did it so rarely that it always came as a kind of electric shock when it happened.
Can you imagine living your entire life beside the ocean but never once swimming? Then all of a sudden being plunged into the depths? I felt my heart would explode, that my lungs would collapse.
She lived in a house with the old couple. They were kind, but they couldn't understand her. They made her wear human clothes and eat human food. If she tried to explain that she wanted to eat only pollen and starlight, or that clothes felt like a prison, they merely laughed and patted her on the head. During the days, she went to a school where they spoke a strange language, and at night she lay alone crying, dreaming of the perfection she had once been.
Often in the middle of the night, I awake in a sweat. My mind runs through the 1,001 things I couldn't or didn't do the day before. My body plagued with a terrible fear of the dawn and the cascade of inevitable failures to come. In those days, I would often open my eyes and let them adapt to the dark, then glance over to Barbara, dimly illuminated by nothing but the moon, which crept in through the blinds we always forgot to close. Could almost see the warm blood circulating beneath her skin. Her muscles would twitch, her brow would furrow with concern. Her lips would part and release a sigh for all the living that would die and all the endless dead who are forgotten. I know that this is what she dreamed of because she told me herself, in hushed whispers over coffee.
I often used to dream. Although perhaps it is more accurate to say that I had nightmares, as I find my mind drifted always towards darkness, filled itself with bleak landscapes stripped of all life, to crumbling streets lined with the bodies of the wounded, the destitute, the dead.
What did Barbara dream about, I wondered, alone in my bed? What realms did that magnificent mind occupy when it was let free? Did she dream of me the way I dreamed of her? Our bare feet running on warm earth, the edges of grass and flowers brushing against our skin as we move through the waves of green. In my dream, there was no fall. Instead, we roamed freely with the beasts. Barbara was climbing an immense tree, her long hands stretching out to me, my fingers entwining themselves with hers. And then I am floating, as if I am nothing, for she is both impossibly strong and I am impossibly light.
And what of Martha then? Alone in her
body
bed.
laid out on that large bed, her eyes moving gently beneath her lids, her breath pulling me in
wrapped
and
in her old
in
torn
and
quilt.
in, and then pushing me out into
It occurred to me that
existence.
all of Barbara and my fears were artificial,
I lived in that imagined
or at
breath.
least theoretical. Martha
I dreamed
was
of Barbara
the
dreaming,
only one of us who
and
ever
dreamed that
faced
she was
any real
dreaming of me
danger.
dreaming too.
As I
was
lay
the
down to
only one
sleep
who may or
each
may not
night,
have enough to
anxiety
eat
for
one
what
day.
may come rushed into my mind
Who may
and
be
filled me
driven
to the
And
brim.
Richard
who
Richard
makes
wasn't
horrors
them
asleep.
awaited
sit on
me
a
on the
cold
other
winter
side
night,
Even from the
sleep,
depths of my
wrapped
dream, I
in
could tell you
rags
that.
at the edge of a cheap bar.
Barbara lay
Coins
next to me,
tossed
lost in
haphazardly
the
at her feet
hazards,
by
indifferent
while Richard lay
passersby.
awake,
fields
thinking.
of weed on fire,
His mind like
the
a little
mangled
watch,
remains
all
of what
wound
were
up and
once
ticking
forests,
away,
cities
trying to piece
drowning
together
in
all
the
the
sea,
discordant
a young
things.
girl, her tiny body emaciated
Richard
by
didn't belong
hunger,
in our
clad
Eden.
only in
Was that
soiled
why she
Nor did
rags,
he
needed the
need
God
it.
who, for
standing near
Barbara
the
and
He was a
edge
man of the
myself,
world,
with one foot
even as
hanging
much as he
off.
no more than
fantasized
a distant
himself a man
memory?
of the spirit.
I often
The
dreamed
subject
those
of a
days,
With
fairy
Richard, I
tale
didn't
whose
have to
plot you
wonder,
cannot
really.
quite recall.
I knew more and more that he thought of me.
but I did not sleep well.
I could feel it in his gaze
That
when we
why,
met,
with each passing
as
hour,
if I had already
felt
been
more
there,
sure that it
in
was
his mind's
Martha
eye,
who needed
and
me,
he had just waited for me to emerge in the flesh once more.
not Barbara.
I was afraid of Barbara because I suspected that she didn't think of me. I was afraid of Richard because I knew that he did.
After a few years, the girl started to feel her memory slipping away. She knew that if she didn't do something, she would soon turn all the way human, with no hope of making it back to the no place. The old couple couldn't possibly understand her plight, so she went out into the world in search of assistance. First, she went to the woods and saw a bear. She spoke to the bear, but he only looked at her with confusion. So she went to the creek and spoke to a trout. He looked at her with wide eyes, silent and unknowing. She went to a field and spoke to a flower, but the flower was silent. Finally, she looked to the sky and saw the clouds. She had been taken by them to this place, and perhaps they could take her back. With all her might, she cried out to the sky. The large clouds merely drifted away, but one small cloud broke off from the group and came down to her. "Why are you speaking the language of the clouds, little human?" "I am no human," she replied. "I am the girl who is not, and I am lost. I'm trying to get back to no place." "Oh," exclaimed the cloud, "I am going there myself, but I am far too small to carry you." "Do you know how I can get back there?" she asked. The small cloud looked troubled and told the girl a long series of tasks she had to perform in order to get back to no place. The story was always different in this section. My father would expand upon it almost infinitely until I fell asleep. The girl would have to walk in a complex pattern through the woods, following obscure signs and markings. She would have to scale a mountain, descend into the depths of a cave, acquire a specific series of objects. The complexity of the quest would become so great that I would never be able to keep my eyes open long enough to hear if she made it back, or if she remained trapped in the human world. My father's stories were my greatest influence. I always dreamed of writing a book which was infinite, which spiraled and branched in such a manner that the narrative itself would disappear as it was consumed by the proliferation of details. The critics, those who bothered to try to understand me beyond my age, always called me a mystic. But I knew better than them. I was a scientist. You see, the rationalists, the materialists, they ignore the true science. They look at the surface but do not seek the implications beneath. We are not unified beings, but rather a colony of energy bound into an arbitrary shape. We do not live within tidy stories, but inside an endless stream that has no rules, no boundaries. don't know why I bother still to speak. Words are inadequate, and to push forward with an inadequacy, one must either be foolish or mad. To make the transition from the material to the immaterial is a privilege, an honor bestowed not by God or man, but by the very nothing which clings, invisible and unknowable, to the edge of each of us. If you can think of yourself as pure matter, and with past the vanity of individuality, the act of dissolution isn't difficult, merely a redistribution of energy. Will they remember me, or will I slowly fade away until it was as if I had never existed at all? That would be better, for there is more beauty in forgetting than remembering. But this is nothing more than the last struggles of a language I'm still working to forget.
Barb, did you pick up... Bug on.
It's almost nighttime.
It's pouring.
You won't tell her, will you? It's gotten quite late.
Yes.
Do you think she's all right?
She can take care of herself. I'm sure she's taking shelter somewhere.
Hope you're right. I worry about her with the hairy man out there on the loose.
You know, you really should stay here tonight.
I shouldn't.
You can't walk home in this, and even after it's past, the roads will be all mudded anyway. You shouldn't be alone, not until they catch him.
That's very kind.
There's extra linens in the closet.
I know.
Oh, yes. I suppose you put them there. Or you put the dress back on. Like your hair. I want to see your face. So beautiful. The most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
Lie to me. I hate it when people lie to me.
Shh.
We made love twice that night. Once on the floor immediately and a second time slower on the bed. I couldn't have been very good at it. I didn't know a thing about what I was doing. But I was so lost in a fever that I couldn't say for certain. A girl at school once told me that women pant when they make love. I tried to do that, and although I felt silly, he seemed to like it.
When we were standing on the back of that boat, watching Athens recede into the distance, and I spoke to my father of the book I wanted to write, he realized right away what I was. Something not quite human, not of this world. I am a changeling, something the fairies had left him to care for reasons unknown to us both.
Neither of us saw Barbara again, although we know she did come back to the house. $36 were missing, along with her favorite velvet skirt, her finest walking boots, and the dapper pale jacket I had given her for her last birthday. She just disappeared. Absolutely vanished. Most of the town thought she had been taken, or worse, by the hairy man. No one ever saw him again either, so imaginations really ran wild. Over time, both Barbara and the hairy man became part of local mythology. The killings came to a stop, and although the more rational local residents ascribed the crimes to a wandering mountain lion that Andy Gartner shot 2 weeks later, the general consensus was that the beast was the culprit. The children still tell tales about him. Kind of boogeyman who comes to take you if you wander too far off the beaten trail. I tried to write a story about it, but I couldn't figure out the ending. Anyway, after Barbara disappeared, it seemed a bit distasteful, and I laid the manuscript aside.
Richard's body was soft but strong. The muscles I had loved were still there, but they were beginning to disappear as a result of the thousands of hours hunched behind desks. As I gazed upon him, I was sure that I would miss him. His lips both still and in motion, his long body and the way it cradled mine, the way he quivered and melted when he was inside of me. Richard was a good man, I think, but he was still a man, a human being through and through, and there was no way for him to follow me where I was going. I am not a thing but its absence. I am myself by the very fact that I am not. You may be afraid I am lost, but do not fear. Do not cry and moan. Instead, sing for me. Because wherever I may be now, know that I am on my way home. Though the journey is long and hard, your voice will lighten my step, and your breath will fill my heart.
If she merely left, then where did she go? Not back to the city. And I couldn't imagine her living in the woods all alone, like some kind of vagabond. Maybe, just maybe she caught a boat to Europe. I like to imagine her sitting near the docks in Marseille at some little cafe. The breeze off the Mediterranean running through her hair as she scratches a poem onto a napkin. She'd never publish it, of course. She'd just leave it there for the waiter, or maybe drop the paper into the ocean as she walked away, as if it was nothing. But that's my fantasy, of course. Her friends back in the city, the friends she still had, all agreed. She'd finally done it. She spoke about it from time to time, and the circumstances of her father's death really had marked her. Sometimes while she was sleeping next to me, I would hear her murmur his name. In the end, he might have been the only person she ever really loved, whom she ever felt truly understood her. And there had been that old incident with the pills. I tried to forget about that, chalk it up to a bad case of nerves, but it was hard not to remember now, especially as the weeks passed to months and still we never found a trace of her.
I chose not to forget her. What we remember makes us who we are. I still wear her clothes. After all, they are the right fit. And I was raised not to let anything go to waste. They don't smell like her anymore. The scent faded away over the years, even as I refused to wash them. Sometimes I was careless and wore one of her dresses into town when I was doing the shopping. I could feel everyone staring at me, knowing that they knew that it wasn't really my dress, that I didn't deserve any of what I had, that I had stolen another woman's life.
Do you want to have a seat?
No, thank you.
How can I help you, child?
It's a question about scripture.
What is it?
I've been reading Song of Songs again and again. I feel it's speaking to me, but I'm struggling to make sense of it.
Oh, it's a tricky book, isn't it?
And the roof of thy mouth, like the best wine for my beloved, that goeth down sweetly and causes the lips of those that sleep to speak. I am my beloved's, and his desire is toward me. Come, my beloved, let us go into the field, let us lodge in the villages, let us get up early to the vineyards, let us see if the vine flourishes, whether the tender grape appears, and the pomegranates bud forth. There will I give thee my love. Is that how our Lord feels toward us? Excuse me, Father. We lived in the house all through the war years. Richard fought in the army in Europe. He signed up right away on December 8th, 1941. Theo, our baby boy, was still nursing. I didn't want him to do it, but Richard said he'd never be able to live with himself if he didn't go. I missed him less than I thought I would. He was wounded by a grenade, nearly killed. They sent him home. He has to walk with a cane now, and he's not as handsome as he used to be. But really, I prefer it this way. It's nice to know we're both a bit broken. During that time, Theo and I lived off checks from the army and the royalties from Richard's first novel, The Devil Does Not Like Music. It did quite well in the end. In 1944, he published his second novel, The Moon War, which I found to be a bit simplistic. I loved the horror stories, but I never cared much for his science fiction. Barely anyone bought it, and he became quite depressed. In 45, I gave birth to little Elsa, and we sold the old house and moved to Los Angeles. Richard had decided it was the only place to be if he was ever going to make it big. He had met a Russian-American film producer who was making a series of low-budget horror films, all shadows and creaking floorboards, but also full of this sad sort of romance. They wrote a screenplay together, Isle of Phantoms. It was a big hit, at least for a film of that size. Richard started getting screenwriting jobs pretty steadily, and he mostly stopped writing fiction. I like his writing less and less as the years go by, but don't tell him I told you that. They never found the body. Richard's convinced she's at the bottom of the Mississippi, but I'm not so sure. I take long walks these days, and I often feel someone is watching me as I wind through the twisting paths in Griffith Park. Sometimes the phone rings and I answer it. There's no one on the other line, just static. Now and then, when Richard and I are making love, I think of her and of that one kiss she gave me. Richard's lips are so soft and he keeps himself clean-shaven, so it's possible for me. I close my eyes to imagine she's kissing me still. I don't believe in God anymore. When I start to feel her caressing me, I do believe in ghosts.